Hey guys, you ever ask yourself, how did Jesus deal with difficult people? I know I ask myself that all the time because I want to make sure that when I encounter difficult people, that I'm dealing with it the way that Jesus dealt with it. That I'm doing it the way that He modeled. I wanted to touch on a couple of ways here and show how Jesus really deals with difficult people with wisdom, with patience, with discernment, and grace, right? So the first one is he questioned their motives. When the Pharisees tried to trap him with questions about his authority, he responded with a question of his own, and he ultimately exposed their hypocrisy, right? So this we see in Matthew 21, verses 23 to 25. Jesus entered the temple courts, and while he was teaching, the chief priests and the elders of the people came to him. By what authority are you doing these things? They asked. And who gave you this authority? And Jesus replied, well, I will also ask you one question. And if you answer me, I will tell you by what authority I'm doing these things. John's baptism, where did it come from? Was it from heaven or from human origin? They discussed it among themselves and said, if we say from heaven, he will ask, then why didn't you believe him? So, yeah, that was a pretty wise way of going about things, right? And it exposed them. They were left speechless. What could they say? Another way is he ignored unnecessary criticism. So in Mark chapter 5, verses 35 and 36, let me read it. While Jesus was still speaking, some people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. Your daughter is dead, they said. Why bother the teacher anymore? And overhearing what they said, Jesus told him, don't be afraid, just believe. And really, Jesus just ignored what the critics were saying, and those negative voices around him, trying to stop him from accomplishing his mission and his kingdom work, right? And, Jesus showing that lack of engagement shows us that not every situation where we encounter difficult people requires that engagement. We don't need to put out that comment in reply or in rebuttal to every difficult thing, every difficult comment, every difficult person, every difficult situation, right? Another one is he addressed them publicly. So Jesus often responded to people in public because it made it harder for them to twist his words, but it also made it harder for them to deny their actions because of the amount of witnesses that were there. We see this in Matthew 23, verses 1 through 12, I think. Let's see here. 1 through 12, yes. Let me read it really quickly. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, the teachers of the law and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. So you must be careful to do everything they tell you, but do not do what they do, for they do not practice what they preach. Ooh, bold. They tie up heavy, cumbersome loads and put them on other people's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to lift a finger to move them. Everything they do is done for people to see. They make their phylacteries wide and their tassels on their garments long. They love the place of honor at banquets and the most important seats in the synagogues. They love to be greeted with the respect in the marketplaces and to be called rabbi by others. But you are not to be called rabbi, for you have one teacher. You are all brothers, and you do not call anyone on earth Father, for you have one Father, and he is in heaven. Nor are you to be called instructors, for you have one instructor, the Messiah. The greatest among you will be your servant. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. He really told them. I mean, honestly, he centered them all out, and he taught a great lesson just by addressing them publicly and addressing them as a whole without naming names. He did a really great job there. Good for Jesus. What a great example. Another way is that he showed grace. That's something that I find we all struggle with. I mean, we've been given so much grace, and yet we find it so hard to offer grace to others. So despite that opposition, Jesus extended grace to those who actually genuinely, wholeheartedly seek after him. And we see this in the story of Nicodemus, where he teaches Nicodemus. And that's in John chapter 3, verses 1 to 21. I won't read it because it's all very, very long. But we know that Nicodemus was a Pharisee, and, you know, a very prominent one. And he could have been just lumped into that category with all the other Pharisees and treated, you know, the same way, where he was addressing them, all of them publicly. But Nicodemus came to Jesus, and he came to him with a very, very sincere heart. Like, he was really, truly seeking after the truth. And so Jesus extended grace to him and tried to teach him and to explain things to him. And, you know, that's a really, really beautiful section of Scripture. It is absolutely beautiful. Another way, and this is one I struggle with, is he walked away from toxicity. Jesus didn't waste his time engaging with people who were intent on manipulating or continuing a toxic style of relationship. He advised his disciples to shake the dust off their feet. And yeah, that's in chapter 10 of Matthew, verse 14. It says, "If anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, leave that home or town and shake the dust off your feet." I like how he says that home or town. Sometimes it's not just a person. Sometimes it's a whole community of people. And he says, shake the dust off your feet, move on. And continue on in your calling is what that means. You're moving on, you're shaking the dust off your feet, and you're moving on in your calling for your kingdom work. That place didn't accept it. Maybe someone else will be called to affect that place. And you know, Jesus's approaches, they teach us to be discerning, firm in our conviction, firm in our calling, and gracious when dealing with difficult people. And I don't know if you know, I probably missed a bunch, but I know that these examples really resonated with me. And I don't know, did they resonate with you? Is there something that I missed? I just pray that that when we do meet the opposition, that we handle it like Jesus did, so that we can continue to be the light in the world, and not forget to shake the dust off our feet when it's needed. A lot of times it's needed. All right, God bless, guys. We'll talk soon.